My name is Christian, and I'm happy to moderate a great session about also adoption of AI, scaling AI. And I'm with Sarah and Michael, and I just want to give a little bit of a first impression in terms of how do we see the topic and where do we stand. First of all, I think this theme in terms of AI in action, focused mainly on Germany, has a lot of different aspects. And maybe some of you guys and gals have been in the session before. We had another discussion in a very similar kind of matter in terms of had a perspective from an insurance perspective and also startup a way of looking at it from a software perspective. I think now we're talking more in terms of bringing it, how do we bring it to the corporate world, and how do we really get into the AI use at scale overall. If you look at it from a pure numbers perspective, I said it before, it's only 6% of our organizations have embraced the AI journey at scale. So they're already kind of getting all the benefits that, as a consultant, you may think of in terms of efficiency, effectiveness that are possible for the current state of technology. Only 11 to 12% of the German companies, which is slightly above the EU average, are really embracing AI overall. So we have a leading group of almost, I think, maybe 10% of the population that are really driving the agenda. If you look at it from an EU perspective, we're talking about a similar range, but we have also countries like Denmark, where we see already 27%, so a third of the industry embracing AI end-to-end. That means not only from a technology base, but also in terms of how we bring the people along. So we know that we are lagging behind compared to the US. We know that we are lagging behind also compared to China. And if you have been there recently, you see that in a daily way of living. On the other hand, it's just like a positive sign is also there. We have AI mandates in most of the organizations. So it is embraced. If you look at the annual reports or you look at the statements of most organizations, AI is on top of the discussion. And we have a strong startup scene. We have more than 600 AI startups in Germany that are driving the agenda. We have a lot of research institutions, and a lot of them are here today. I saw so many names from popular kind of universities, research institutions that are driving the agenda from an academic perspective as well. We have an industrial track record, and let's start with BMW a little bit from my perspective. We have also kind of front runners in this way. You know, I spent some of my time before I joined BCG also with IBM, so I was happy to see Andrea on stage beforehand. And I remember the times when we have around 2012 started with AI adoption in BMW with the first kind of ideas in terms of how to use statistics and how to use AI. And then in 2018, I think you guys started to use AI also in the production cycle, so using image recognition and similar kind of technologies in terms of getting it really in the production cycle. So we have some early adopters, and you have been front runners. I think you guys, just to my knowledge at least, in 2012, you have been the first ones in an industrial contract that bought this popular technology by these days called Watson. So there is something going on. And then there is an AI hub, and there is early experiments coming up. So real-time defect detection and right technology in the right place. On the other hand, we have a lot of firms that's still stuck in this kind of process. They are not always the leaders, and you will talk about that later, Michael, in terms of how we get there. There are a lot of companies that are still stuck in the process, which is, and the barrier is not technology. Yeah, we have technology, I'll come to that in a second, that can be a barrier, but in the end it's people. It's in terms of, it's a talent gap, it's also understanding, it's a cultural and organizational perspective that we are struggling with, and we also have a trust issue and an acceptance issue in the whole society. When we just heard about the deepfake discussion we had earlier here in the room, we know that the kind of competence of our of the civil public being is not as strong as we think about media consumption, but that also brings a lot of mistrust in all these kind of technologies, and there is an adoption point. We have now the EU AI Act in place that gives us some safety from that perspective, but it's also kind of seen as over-regulation in the one or the other point. From our study, for instance, we've talked about a lot of CEOs lately and talked about sovereignty in terms of how how much do you spend on infrastructure, or do you plan to spend on infrastructure that has to do something with sovereign infrastructure? So we really get also kind of hand on the grip of on the models and on the driving force of AI on the technology base. And we know it's only 80% of our CEOs that want to invest in there. In France, it's already 28%. So we lack this kind of awareness on these topics as well. So there needs to be a balanced approach. And that means also from that perspective, we need to enable the technology and innovation by AI in a very, very complex environment with a lot of variables around us to drive this. To have a clear perspective on that one from the asset way view, where we have world-class engineering, as we know, we have the industrial data that we're sitting on, we have a research ecosystem, we have AI talents, as I just said. The question is really, how do I bring it really into scale? And the goal now is to exchange some ideas in terms of learn from both of you in terms of how to drive this. And Michael, I'd like to start with you, as we just already talked a little bit on my BMW experience, which is quite a couple of years ago. You have been integrating AI across a lot of areas. But the success around that is based on the people, like drivers like yourself and the people you're taking with yourself. How do you bring the engineers and how do you bring the AI experts together? And how do you have learned about building this kind of culture that is really driving these topics around AI forward?
So I brought some slides with me. I don't know if we can just put it into place. I think it's right. It's about people. So to make that very clear, we don't have a technical or technology problem to scale it up. For us, we are a company of 160,000 people, and to getting all benefits out of that AI stuff into place, you have to support everyone out of that 160,000 to make things happen. The topic we are faced on the BMW side, we have a single product. It's the car. Oh, okay, there's a little bit around it, but it's the car. And we have from production till development, services, products with AI, we have a manifold topics which are related to AI, but which played in the past in total different domains. So a single solution on our side, which makes, hey, that's your AI solution, doesn't work out. That's not going to work. So the topic for us is that we have to maintain how is the link between all that parts of the development, the product, the process, and the production to make AI happen. And a lot of them are cross-domain building up. And that's very classical, starting from sharing data. Normally I tell the story, if you go somebody for inspection of cars on return and quality measurement in the production, you're looking for scratches on the surface. It's more or less from AI part, the same topic to be solved. In real life, nobody ever met before because it's totally separate value chains. So we started to address them by having some structural topics inside. So we have 3 pillars. We're using off-the-shelf AI systems. If that's going to happen, that's a great part, and that's happening with SAP, for example, as well. Is that sufficient? No. Then we have a specific domain, that's automotive and production. So we have to tune, somebody is telling that tailoring or building a bespoke AI solution where we said we have a specific need of solving problems, and then we have to build it ourselves. So that's quite easy. I take that. Give some help. And the last one, which is an important one also for educating, is some kind of self-service. So we have to lower the burden and to get the people involved with that technology. And involved means that has to happen beyond what you experience with your smartphone, with just dialing in a little bit ChatGPT and things like that. Because we would like to transfer that to business. That somebody takes care about AI, that's not sufficient. I mentioned there's some must-win battles, and that's also the challenges we are facing. I already talked about that technology stacks, and normally these parts don't fit together. Each stack has his own philosophy, and the benefit you get if you can link them. And trust me, that's a hard business, because it's managing partners which might be competitors to work together. Not an easy task, especially if you're waiting for the return of investment. Huh? If the return is there, that's an easy going, that's a win-win situation. Then about data, I think especially in larger companies, you have a bunch of data, but you have to make it usable, maintainable. The earlier you started with that, the better it is, because it's really a lot of work to be done. And especially on AI part, if you're losing history, you're losing a lot of training and processing data, so you start from scratch. So hopefully you have done a lot of data work in the past that helps you a lot speeding up also on the AI side. What also is necessary, and you mentioned, Christian, the EU Data Act, we train our people to be compliant and professional. So that's a very part of having trust and not making faults. So about data policies, data privacy, data usage, compliance, whatsoever. Huh? We formulated a playground with our system where you can do whatever you would like and you stay compliant and comply to all regulatory topics. And that helps the people a lot playing around, because they can't make failures. And that's a little bit the trend to make things a little bit feeling like a startup one. The last one is nicely described, AI capabilities. By the way, who is in a leading position on the audience? Did anybody of you build a MCP server for his business data? Or at least know what that is? Oh, great job. So the point is, it's not about people, it's about leadership. So you who raised the hand, myself, technology is one side. You have to make the right decision. You have to make the right positive bias, the positive impact to make that change happen. And your education on people like me, and I'm an old man, 60 years now, there are a lot of people who are not trained on the digital side and feel hard. And even if they do the best what they can do, it might be the problem that they are not making the right decisions on how to treat AI and the performance and the changes needed on that side. So that's a lot of part. So what we did, we put a system called Gaia on the BMW side to make that as simple happen as possible. And we really emphasize also the leadership. Try it out yourself, please. Yeah? If you go for the numbers, and then I stop talking and hand over to Sarah, these numbers seem impressive. There is a lot of software engineers, a lot of data, and so on, and a lot of also AI-driven application. But if you really look into that, small groups make their own part. That's good for the start, but for a big company, I need the collaboration and the reuse to everybody inside the company. So out of that 50K plus AI apps created, hey, strong part. If I look to the numbers, which is really company-wide in place, 400 plus, and that's not enough. So that's a little bit of thinking on our side. So then I would like to hand.
You're doing enablement from a perspective, not only from an SAP perspective within, but also throughout with your clients. You have definitely some experience on that as well.
If you would like to make AI happen, you must make the people think and act different.
Exactly, and that's what we're talking about now from your experience.
Absolutely. So, hi everybody. Good to see so many of you here. And just a quick intro about myself as well, so you know who you're speaking with. So, my job basically at SAP is to make sure that people, like both inside SAP but also outside, have the skills that they need to be successful in the era of AI. And I think especially if we're talking about adoption, this is a huge topic, I would say, right? We heard it in the previous talk. People are just as important as the technology behind, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute a little bit more. But you touched on it already, right? What it really takes to be successful with AI as an enterprise. Because it's very different if you're using AI in your private life, right? Everybody knows ChatGPT, everybody knows Perplexity, everybody's using it. I do too in my private endeavors. But it's very different when it comes to an enterprise context, because there are severe limitations to what you can do with these openly available tools, right? In terms of security, in terms of data leakage, and also, frankly, in knowing the context of the enterprise in the end, right? Because there's only so much you can do with the kind of open available data that's out there. You really want to make it matter for your company. And this is also where we're talking about what is the actual return on investment. And that's why SAP is specifically looking at bringing together three things. It's application, it's the data that is underlying, and it is the AI across the processes, right? Because that is really what is the powerful engine behind it that can drive it for companies around that. And also something that's super dear to my heart, we've focused from the start on making sure that we have a responsible approach to that. Does it sometimes take a little bit longer to develop that and to make sure that we check all the boxes and that we make sure we do it the right way? Yes, it does. Yes, it does for sure. Also, when we look at competitors out there in the market, but I think it is the right thing to do also to win in the long run, right? For us as a software company, but also for our customers out there. So AI ethics and safety, AI security, and AI compliance is something that's very dear to our heart and that we're really looking into. It's also a discussion that we're having with a lot of customers in the market right now. But then also, I was smiling when the colleague talked about that earlier, right? It's not about the technology only. It's about people, it's about processes, and it's about the technology. And we need enablement around all of these, right? On the technology side, and that's what most companies are looking at in the first place. Right, you need to make sure you are ready, you have the platform ready, you can implement in a secure and in a scalable way on your platform. From a process side, right, make sure that AI is intelligently integrated where it matters, and also have the databases behind ready. But then it's also about people. In my perspective, the AI adoption and the success we're having it with AI is majorly a topic of change management and how we take people along this journey with us. So these are also not sequential, but you need to have that continuous loop going on. And then you can also define when you get people to understand where AI can have an impact and where it cannot. Also for the enterprises, right? Where can it boost efficiency and productivity? Where can it provide insight at scale to me? And where can it drive innovation and growth? And for that, I always say the best thing to do is really get started and get hands-on, right? Try it out. And it needs to happen on all layers of leadership, because I think there needs to be leadership across an entire company in order to drive that, right? Starting from the top level, because of course, like, how should an employee in, I don't know, HR recruiting pay attention to this if their CHRO is not looking into that, is not leading by example, and then leading from top down, but also from the bottom up. So this is something that we're driving at SAP quite frequently. We're really making sure that we have room for all of that, right? Even though our people are pretty tech savvy already, right? Working with the technology day in, day out, we're driving that with a lot of hands-on activities, with a lot of enablement initiatives, really on all levels. And this is something that I would recommend as well to really get started.
So let me just take a couple of your points. First of all, I think you talked about change management. Yeah, you know, I'm a consultant by heart. Yeah, that's what I do for a living for the last 20-something years of my life. And you know, you always come to your client and you tell your client, yes, this is a big program in AI, and we want to do this. And then you come to the point where we need change management. Yeah, it's the first thing that is cut out of the budget. Yeah, that's unfortunately the reality that we're talking about. In the end, the other thing is you're stretching also the point in terms of when you say process and people and technology. For me, this is also around the operating model. So my question goes a little bit in the area: how do you convince the decision makers in your organizations to really go for change management, understanding that the main invest in these transformations is not on the tech spend, it's about getting the people along in terms of making sure that they understand, and that, I mean, leading from the top to the bottom. Also, maybe me, if I would be a CEO from a big company, going in a retreat to learn about these things and to be the example that you were talking about. So what's your perspective on that? How do we solve that equation?
I think, first of all, get them involved, and remove the anger or the situation that if you're standing in front and nobody is there, you might be still right and doing things. I think what helps a lot if you have some history on the whole software part, because the change in being able to do software and software-driven products is a quite similar challenge in change than now with AI. So if you have done that and have some experience and people doing that, that helps definitely a lot. You need a quick win. And if you can really push that a little bit in a positive competition, that helps from my point of view the most. Because if everybody wins, and it's a little bit a gambling, I would like to be better, then you push in and then you ask, what does the team need more than just the technology? And then you're talking about, enablement of the people, because you would like to overtake. And then it makes nicer and easier to make that decision.
That's right. That occurs in a different speed. I totally agree with Michael, with you, on saying there were similar changes than in the past, but the speed now is totally different.
Totally different.
People are not faster or quicker or whatever is the right word here in cognitive processes than they have been 20, 30 years ago, maybe a little bit, but not, obviously a lot. How do we tackle that?
I think about back to the change management bit,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's like 5 years ago, you probably took a training once a year on your software, and then you were off to go. Nothing really changed much. Now, and we're seeing that for our own company as well, you can basically run like on at least a quarterly basis, but actually you have to do more to really keep up to speed with the pace of technology. So, like for us, obviously, it's about building products a lot, right? So how can we integrate that, and how do our engineers also stay up to date on this and get going? And for us, in the enablement activities, about also how we convince, right, that this change management part is important, and also that mindset shift. For us, it's all about starting small, but then thinking big, right? Getting a small group of people rallied around it, where you can you talked about quick wins, right? Where you can show the successes, where you can get people behind it, that really advocate for it, and that really understand how it goes, make it hands-on, right? We need to change the way people learn about these things. You don't want to click through kind of an online class for 2 hours, honestly, and go through. We need to make it more bite-sized, more hands-on, more tailored to the technology and to the speed of technology, something that you can consume on the go, something where you can interact with people and things that really move you. And I think that also affects that change management bit. And we're not there yet also, right, in terms of like keeping people up to speed, making sure that everybody is always engaged, because there are a lot of competing priorities, honestly, to learning and to upskilling yourself. But in the end, it's about making clear that it is a critical skill, and it is a critical, topic that people need to know about to stay relevant also in the overall motion of things. So this is something we're looking at, changing the formats, starting with small groups and scaling it out also through community work, so people can talk to peers and learn from them as well.
Awesome.
But let me add some words about. I personally know, I made the experience that investing in change management really counts and gives the way back. So I know that, and with some 100+ million I can spend a year, I know where to do that. It's the same like Rob Martin in his some of his video talks said, don't tell the customer about architecture and all that stuff because he doesn't understand. So do I tell sometimes my bosses that I have to do change management? Probably not, but I have to deliver products, and that's part of it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not something extra. I need it, it's part of it. And then it has to be paid. And you have to decide, and that's also a leadership topic, whom you are telling that, and what you said. Okay, it's all in. It's like your CI pipeline, or what else? It's a must-have, and it's an integral part of your product and your delivery.
Michael, Sarah, I'd like to give the audience also a couple of possibilities, at least to have some questions. If you have an idea and a question to Sarah, to Michael, take your chance now, or I can also continue to bug you a little bit. Just taking this, I took the point around sovereignty beforehand. Sovereignty in terms of investing in our own infrastructure. We are all kind of dependent, also on German companies, but you guys are also a little bit dependent on what's happening outside of Germany. Even SAP is, if you ask me, from my perspective, without making a political statement here. So how do we treat that? Yeah, in terms of getting to infrastructure that we trust, that is not coming from kind of, how would I say it, organization, countries or nations where we don't know what they will do with the data and how we can get a hold of that without losing the track of innovation by using the technology that we all fell in love with in the last couple of months, at least the people on this conference, I assume. So how do you think we can tackle that, or we should tackle that?
And I think there are great options offered already, right? This is also something that we're thinking about really hard, right? How can we make that possible, and how do we offer that option also to our customers? For example, we shared earlier this year also more about our close collaboration with Mistral, for example, or with Aleph Alpha, right, in terms of also having locally hosted models that make that possible, or hosted on SAP infrastructure, to really think about this more.
May I just to challenge you a little bit on that?
Yeah.
I hear always the same story in Europe. We always hear, and then, to be honest, with all ado, I love Aleph Alpha, I love Mistral as kind of options, but that the difference in terms of technology advancements that we see also is also definitely there. We're always trying to overcome that. So my question is really, is there more than that? Is there something else in our back of our mind that we can do? I'm totally with that. Yeah, just I want to challenge a little bit, just for the sake of the audience.
Yeah, and I wouldn't agree with that, I think.
Okay.
Right, in terms of like the models that we're developing, or the models that are being developed in Europe are behind. I think that's quite a pitfall that most people are trapping into, and I think it's also a problem that we as European companies want sovereignty, but then we're not ready to foster companies that are based in Europe, right?
Agree, yeah.
So I think this is always something that we should look into as well. And just to be very clear, no LLM or no model in general, whatever trained, fits every business problem that you need to tackle, right? It's very, very individual which model works best for which case, which is also where we are checking, for example, how can you drive prompt optimization, how can you drive benchmark engineering to see what really does perform best in that sense. And I think we're seeing great successes there with the European models as well.
Thanks,
but
Michael,
I would open another dimension of that. First of all, competency. We trained a net about capabilities of cars, and in that training data, and that should be a private one, was no idea, no clue about the outside mirrors. Oh. But we got the answer. So what the heck? Where does that information come from? Yeah? So what a little bit spooky. But on the other side, I think we had a recent incident where people who are able to judge about that said, we don't know what with that type of credential really what happens with that. It's a little bit. We're not going to use it, and if you decide not going to use it, you need the ability to make a decision and having an alternative. I think you can go for the best solution or ever, ideal one. If that really exists, I don't know. For me, the pragmatic way is you have options. You can decide, and you can choose another route if possible. And hopefully you have the competency when to decide making another way. Yeah. So I would say.
So thank you for this. Sorry for the provoking questions, but for the dialogue, I liked it, and thanks for all of you for attending that, and have maybe discussions afterwards in the audience. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.